Welcome you tonight, and we want to say that we're going to have some fun. We've got Sheriff John Myers here in the studio. We drug him back in here again. He's in here on his own some, but we drug him back in.
Yeah, I'll be right back in tomorrow night.
He'll be right back tomorrow night, so there's no need to listen to his show because he's on right now.
You see, I came in with a bag of groceries.
You did?
Yeah, for that I'm going to cook later. So I just came in. I just throw it in the refrigerator like I live here.
Well, I'll be back tomorrow then.
Yeah.
But my name's Brandon Taylor. I'm the chairman of the Lawrence County Republican Party. Across the table from me is Lawrence Sutton, secretary of the Lawrence County Republican Party. Also on the other side of the table is Jerrod Menz, the director of the Lawrence County Republican Party. And we also have our good Sheriff John Myers. Welcome, John Myers.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here, buddy.
Lawrence, I just saw you like 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Hey, is the breakfast Saturday?
Breakfast is, yes. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. Breakfast is this Saturday at West End Community Center. Starts at 6:30. You going to be there?
More than likely.
Okay, well, let me know. You want an omelet?
See, I knew he was
Can
going
I
to bring
get-
that up. No,
get-
you can't. You
No.
cannot get an omelet.
What
Don't
is up with
ask.
that?
No,
Huh?
you got to be something bigger than a constable to get that.
So for everyone that's wondering, Sheriff John Myers seems to get some kind of special benefit. He comes in and he gets a omelet instead of the standard breakfast.
call
at
it
West
in.
End Community
He
Center.
calls
It
it
was
in.
his idea. It's nothing to do with me trying to be, to throw my weight around.
You know what?
It's
I don't
just
even
he
like.
offered,
I don't even
so
like
took it.
omelets, so it's fine. I don't even like them.
Well, don't say nothing.
Yeah. Don't cry, Jerrod.
He may not like
Don't
it,
hate the
but
player, hate the game.
When I saw Lawrence give you the omelet one of those times, I saw Jerrod actually drool.
Yeah.
I mean, he don't even like omelets. But
I
anyway.
got crap from the judges. I got everybody that was there was giving me crap. And
I
said,
think that's
hey,
why
look.
Lawrence started it. He was like, I'm going to give the sheriff special treatment, and it's going to be bad for him.
What we need to do, Lawrence, is we need to start making them bigger. Not for me, but just for everybody else that looks. Maybe get me some fruit or some. Let's think of something that we can spruce it up a little bit.
Oh, I
Like
can-
a grand slam from Kings.
so-
Like have him come out. He's got
So
the
when I
whole.
walk in, I've got like a platter.
Why don't we, just get you a big platter of it. Blueberries and blackberries are in season at our house right now, so you might
there?
want to talk to my girls over there.
See where I'm going with this?
They can pick you a bunch of blackberries and blueberries, and we'll make it look all nice
So
and
here's
pretty
what's
and
actually
fancy.
important for everyone to know. Saturday morning, West End Community Center.
5514 Waynesboro Highway.
It is awesome. It is an awesome breakfast. I go almost it's once a month.
Yep.
And there's good
drives-
fellowship down there.
He drives down from Nashville. He'll
Yeah.
leave Nashville like 4 o'clock in the morning to come down and eat.
I know, because the
I
breakfast
have.
is good. I mean, you can't beat it for $8. You cannot beat the breakfast that you get. It, I think it puts the Shoney's that used to be here to shame. Our breakfast does.
And you'll see a lot of people from town. A lot of people will probably be there.
Yeah.
And so it's a good time.
That's exactly right. Thank you all for giving that plug, because the West End Community Center wants to do a lot of good things in the community, and so we're all involved. But
My wife, when she comes with me, she comes in 2 cars though, because what happens is I go early, and then like the guys that I was hanging with leave, and then the second shift, like Myers comes in a little bit later, and I'll be like, well, we're gonna stay and we're gonna hang out with Myers. And she's like, yeah, go in there with you for like 45 minutes for breakfast ain't bad. But she goes, going for 2 breakfasts, a little bit much. She goes, I think next time I go, I'll just take my own
2
car.
hours, 2 breakfasts. that's the standard.
And I do eat the second time too.
I'll
so.
tell you what I've been thinking about, so I'm going to announce it right here. I haven't even mentioned this to Lawrence, but so the next election cycle that comes around, I want to get the elected officials in there cooking and let them cook the breakfast sometime.
That's
Put
a
them in there,
great
put them
idea.
to
I
work.
think what you ought to do is, though, the elected officials that only show up before the election, I think you should charge them double.
Oh, fair enough.
Like if you're an elected official
enough.
and you regularly come in and they see everyone, but just be like, hey, you know what? You're an office holder. We haven't seen you for 3.5 years. It's $20.
20 bucks.
What about the Republican Party? There's
Yeah.
lots that aren't showing up at the Republican
Yeah,
Party.
we need to see you at the Republican Party. We need to
Yeah.
see you there. You can't be a Republican in name only. You have to show up. So, anyways, Sheriff, you got a lot going on in Lawrence County. What's the latest with the law enforcement? Let me say this before you get started. The Lawrence County Republican Party and us as individuals, Lawrence, myself, Jerrod, of course, we support law enforcement, and we are 100% behind the police department here, the sheriff department. We love the military. We want to just say a special thanks to all those guys for what they do. It really matters.
And we appreciate you for saying that.
It does. I even got my shirt on.
That's right. I noticed that one.
I'm virtue
him what it
signaling
said.
today. Yeah, people, they might not can see it, but it says support law enforcement. It's what my shirt says. I'm virtue signaling.
Yeah.
And fortunately for us in Lawrence County, and I tell people this all the time, we very seldom encounter somebody that's anti-law enforcement. Most of those are criminals.
Sure.
Right.
And you expect them to be that way.
Right.
But for the most part, I mean, we had those sobriety checkpoints, I think, 3 weekends ago, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
Two or three different occasions, people brought water or Gatorades or food and set them out there for us while we was out there working
That is
those
awesome.
checkpoints, So that's the kind of reception we get for the most part. But yeah, I mean, I'm the first Republican sheriff since 1952. I mean,
Wow.
in this county.
That's amazing.
A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people
I've
don't
heard
know
that, but just because you've told me that before, but it's still
researched
always.
that. I did. I researched that when I ran in 2018, and the last one was 1950 to 52. Sammy Davis. Was the
It'd have been
last
so
one.
much easier for you to have ran as an independent, probably at that point, wouldn't it? Instead of going with your core beliefs.
Yeah, no, I run, and I told people this in 2018 that if I was ever going to run for office, which I never dreamed that I would do. I
Right.
never dreamed 10 years ago if you'd have told me I was going to run for a local office, especially sheriff.
Right.
I said, not going to happen. Number one, I can't win. Number two, I mean, it's not something that I ever thought that I would do. So when I ran, and I was telling people that I was going to run as a Republican, I was getting it from every angle. Well, that's never happened. That hasn't been done in a long time. Some people couldn't even remember the last time a Republican had gotten elected. So I'd done some research on it. And I told them, look, if I ever run for office, I'm going to run the way I vote. And that's how I vote. So yeah, I'm a proud Republican sheriff, and I'm planning on being here for a little while too.
Well, we're glad. We hope
Yeah.
you stay in there. We want you in, and we're going to try to help keep you in there any way we can.
Well, I
so.
appreciate that. This county is such a good county, and I love working here. I love living here. I've been here since 1979 when we moved to Summertown when I was just a kid. And we've got a lot of good things going.
Yep.
We have had for a long time. And we've got some ideas that we want to try to get done, before we call it quits. And I always say we because it's a team effort. It's not
Absolutely.
just me. If I didn't have good people helping me, I wouldn't be able to do this job. I'd have pulled out every hair that I have.
Right.
I'd have thrown it in the towel a long time ago if I had sole responsibility for this place. But when I got in office in 2018, I put guys in positions that were the best suited people for that job. It wasn't for political reasons. It wasn't for personal reasons. It was because I knew that they was the perfect person for that job, and that's why it works.
Yeah.
That's why the sheriff's department's so effective, is because I've seen it in other administrations that people are in positions for political reasons, and they have problems. And when you have problems at the top of the command staff, it trickles down, and then it's nothing but chaos. We don't have that, and we're all we're all family. I mean, I call them. I'm closer with some of my guys and gals than I am with my own family. But yeah, it works. And we're dealing with the same issues that the other 94 counties across the state are. It's everybody's suffering from the workforce shortage.
Sure.
Everybody. Knock on some wood.
Right.
We're just a couple of positions away from being fully staffed.
Wow.
So how's it going with the pay? Because I had heard recently that the pay for the sheriffs here in our county hasn't been up to par. Now, this was like a year or two ago, but how is the pay now in compared to the other counties?
We are, with the budget that hopefully gets voted in on the 25th, next Tuesday, we're going to get a decent raise. It's not the raise that we asked for,
Uh-huh.
but it's a little better than half of what we asked for. And I don't know, I'm sure everybody here has heard about the problem that was with the first budget that they tried to pass back in June. There was a miscalculation somewhere in the projection, the tax revenue projection, so they kicked it back to vote on it again this month. And with the miss on the tax projections, basically they didn't have the money that they thought they had.
Yeah.
So they decided to give us some pretty good raises, but it wasn't as big as what we asked for. But I sat down with our county executive and our purchasing director, and I got a verbal commitment, that what we didn't get this year that we asked for,
Sure.
We'll get next year.
Okay.
And that was a common ground, that what I've learned in government, even local government, you can't come in there and pound your fist on the table and say this is what it's got to be or no.
Yeah.
You got to be a little bit flexible, and you got to be patient. And I've learned that through the years. You gotta have both of them if you're gonna succeed. I mean, I don't want to strong arm anybody. I mean, I don't want to go in there and say that this is what we got to have, and if you don't give it, I'm going
Right.
to sue.
Right.
Because we had a sheriff here a few years ago that sued the county commission to get
Okay.
raises, and
That causes a stressful environment sometimes. so.
sure it does.
Yeah.
Sure it does. But I mean, if you're willing to be a little bit flexible, and my guys know I'm going to fight like heck for them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to stop fighting until I get them guys and gals to where they need to be. And when people and the rate, we got raises back in 2020. We had a salary study
remember
come
that.
through the county,
Yeah.
and we got thank goodness we got those raises, because if we wouldn't have got those raises with this crazy inflation and fuel prices and cost of living and utilities that's tripled,
Right.
over the past 5-6 years, we'd really been hurting.
Actually, it's been more closer to 3. It's Bidenomics is what it is.
Right, yeah.
We got to pay for Hunter's cocaine because he doesn't use it all. He just leaves it laying around in the White House.
Is that not the craziest
Well, when you make it,
thing
when you
that
get
I've
paid,
ever seen?
$20 million a year from an oil company, you can afford to just let you.
And doesn't know anything about oil. He knows about as much about oil as I do.
Let me tell you something. When I took office and I seen what kind of shape our video system was in the jail, I knew we was going to have to spend a bunch of money to get it up to where it needed to be.
Yeah.
We had a system that was, number one, old. It was outdated. The operating program was useless. We had cameras in sensitive areas of that facility that needed to be working.
Sure.
So we had the money, and we had a guy come in and he gutted it and put all new cameras in it, and then we got an operating system compatible with all that. So we spent about almost $250,000. We've got cameras around that courthouse that I can zoom in on a credit card from across the street at that gas station. I can read the numbers on that credit card.
Wow.
So for these idiots that are telling us that they can't find out whose cocaine that was in that White House,
Yeah.
is just the biggest insult.
Oh, no.
And
Usually-
One of the most secure buildings in the world.
Well,
Yes.
usually in the White House you get abuse of power. This is just abuse of powder. It's just that's what this is. So it's just straight up abuse of powder.
The fact that they told us they couldn't find out whose it was told us whose it was.
That's right.
If I'm an investigator and they say, hey, we need you to come look at this suspicious substance we found in this area, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to secure it and I'm going to put it in an evidence bag and I'm going to give it to a technician,
Right.
and then I'm going to want to know who's been in there. And when I say who's been in there, I want a list of every person that's been in there.
Yep.
And when I start doing backgrounds and I get to the guy that's got pictures floating around on the internet of him smoking crack, that's going to put him at the top of my suspect list.
Yeah. Let's just grab a hair follicle. Grab a hair follicle, you can
Unless
figure
you're
out.
BSNBC, then they don't care. But anyway,
They would say you're profiling just because the guy's smoking crack on the internet.
If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
It's a duck. That's right.
I don't know. It's frustrating.
He's
the way
innocent
they
till
do it.
proven high. Well,
But no, to answer your question about the pay, we're getting close to where we want to be, to where we need to be for our guys.
Okay.
We have to be close. Number one, because we have to be compatible with the other districts and departments around. I mean, the highway patrol, they're getting big raises. All the state people are getting big raises. Municipalities, they're stepping it up and they're giving their people raises. If we can stay compatible to the areas around us, we can retain employees.
well, if we
And that's-
don't, and I don't think this gets said enough, and I know I'm not telling you this, I'm just saying this out publicly. We end up training new recruits as taxpayers in the county, and then they get hired on because we're going to have openings. We need people that can get on easier. That's easy to get on. We train them. We pay for all the training, and then they go to another county or another department and they get a pay raise in just a few weeks after being hired on.
Yeah.
So, and that's a problem.
It's
and
it's frustrating,
constant.
and we've got a standard 2-year agreement that we make people commit to.
Okay.
They sign off on it saying they're going to give us a minimum of 2 years. But you know, it's tough when you see your guys out there struggling, and you take I did it when I got elected. I was working 3 jobs.
Yeah.
I've always worked at least 2 jobs. Most of my guys will tell you they have to work 2 jobs. You know, one job pays all the bills, the other one buys groceries.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty much how it works. If you want some spending money, you might take on another job. And it's the way it's always been, but we don't do it for the money. We do it because it helps us sleep good at night, because we make our county a little bit better. But bottom line is we got to get them up where they need to be.
So I'm going to go back to 2020 conversation I had with you, and people may believe this or not, but you and I have not discussed this in recent months. But in 2020, I didn't know you very well, and you'd been elected sheriff, and I'd just seen you in passing. I think it was actually one day at West End Community Center. I said, hey, I need to talk to you. So I know you already know where I'm going with this, because the first conversation that you and I had in depth. But during COVID, of course, a lot of folks know that I have church and I have a group, and we meet. And during COVID, I did not shut down any of our church meetings. You know, like it or not, people can hate it, but Easter Sunday we baptized like 23 people during COVID because that's what I felt that I should do.
In a storm.
If you know me, you know that's how that went down. But because I believe that I'm going to do what as unto the Lord, not as unto the government. So when the government falls out of line with the Lord, then I'm just going to step in what the good Lord tells me to do. And there is no constitutional exemption for a pandemic or sickness or illness. Our Constitution stands no matter what. So I started getting a lot of phone calls. Well, not a lot. I got a few phone calls, and it was threatening that they were going to turn me in. I would be turned in, and I'm thinking, what kind of authorities are going to come arrest me for having church? And of course, if you know me, I'm kind of rebel anyways, so it just kind of fueled my fire. I was like, I'm for sure going to do this. But it got to the point where I was getting so many phone calls. I actually told our kids, I said, guys, if something happens, because the conversation was around the house, these phone calls were coming, hey, we're going to turn you in. You could get arrested for having church services. And, you know, some people were mad about it. So I told my kids, I said, look, if I get arrested, it's going to be okay. It'll be funny. Don't worry about it. Dad will be out before the sun goes down. I'll be back at home before bedtime. But I had that conversation. So I actually caught you at the West End Community Center. I said, hey, let me talk to you. And so I approached John and I said, you know, I don't know you that well, but I just want to go ahead and tell you that people are calling me. They're upset that I'm having church services, but I'm not going to stop having church. I'm just not. If somebody doesn't want to go to church, that's fine. If somebody doesn't want to have church, that's fine. That's on them. But I'm going to do what I feel like I need to do, and I'm not going to stop. And I said, if you're going to arrest me, I'm just going to go ahead and give you my address. I'll make it real easy for you. I'm not going to cause a big stink for you. I want you to know what I'm doing. I'm not trying to do something and hide it. And John looked at me and he said, I'll tell you right now. He said, when I ran for sheriff, I said I will be a sheriff that will never disarm a law-abiding citizen. And you looked at me, you said, and I will never go down in history as a sheriff that shuts down a church for having services.
That's right.
And so, from that point forward, you had yourself an avid supporter from me. I was like, yes, because during that time, people were just caving to political pressure. They were caving to what their friends or coworkers were going to think. And really, I just don't care about what everybody else's opinion is. If you go around and you do that, then you're going to be living your life to serve people that don't like you, and they never will like you.
Well, that was the scare tactic. That was the scare tactics that they used across the board. They weaponized that. I mean, how many times did you see it? Can you remember one time when a COVID story that aired on whatever news channel didn't start out showing a bunch of guys in containment suits, standing around somebody in a bed?
I know, it was crazy. It was stupid.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they wanted everybody to think, you know. That's so frustrating. And you still see it today. You turn on the news, there's still COVID stories running.
Well, John, and I'm sure you know this, me and Brandon, we actually talk about this all the time. They're going to do it again. They had so much fun shutting everything down, and these people that are not elected officials, they are bureaucrats, and you gave them a little bit of power, and now power is like a drug, and they're addicted to it, and they're going to look for ways to control people again.
I think the pushback,
and it's going to happen.
I think the pushback will be a lot quicker and a lot stronger, though, if they try it again.
You know what? I hope you're right. But see, I pushed back the entire time. I mean, after Walmart came out and said you have to wear a mask to go into Walmart, me and Laura, we went into Walmart and walked around 2 hours the day after they did that without a mask. We were the only ones walking there without a mask. And I told this story the other day, and I'm looking at men. I look at men. I'm looking them in the eye, let them know, hey, I see you, I'm acknowledging you. And I bet you 90% of the men look down. Yeah. They would not look me in the eye.
My favorite was when you go into a restaurant, you had to wear the mask until you sat down. Now, once you sat down, you was okay.
See, as soon as I had a restaurant do that to me a couple of times, I just looked at them and said, you know what? I'm just going to go spend my money with people that aren't as stupid as you. That's what I did. I told them that, and I walked out and went to another restaurant that wasn't doing that.
Well, for me, during that time, if that was ever to prove that you stand for our constitutional freedoms, and I appreciate that, I'll never forget that. And if I ever get the opportunity to tell people you standing for our freedoms, I'm going to take that opportunity. I think a lot of people don't realize that our sheriff, and I'm not talking about just the sheriff of this county, but the sheriff that's elected over your county is the person who represents your constitutional freedoms in that county.
That's a fact.
You are not employed by anyone. Mm-hmm. You're elected by the citizens to stand in. You're our constitutional representative. Now, constables, they don't count. But
what are you talking about? We don't even get paid. But we're directly elected in law enforcement.
I know you were just an easy target.
I know. You can't.
Well, why does he keep trying to pull me over then? I'll be driving, minding my own business, and all of a sudden I'm here, and he's sitting there and he's like, "Pull over." And I'm like,
he saw you eating some fries and wanted some. But so, I mean, a lot of people just don't know that our sheriff represents our constitutional freedoms. So what about all those counties right now who have liberal sheriffs not willing to stand up for their freedoms? It's a big deal for me. It's huge. Our freedoms are a big deal. I see our freedom of speech is under attack even today. We've seen it in the news with the Jason Aldean video they pulled down off CMT. You see it just constantly pulling back at our freedom of speech. Our special session that's coming up is an assault on our right to bear arms. I mean, this is an infringement on our rights. So we have to have someone that's elected that's willing to stand up and say, I will support your constitutional rights. And you do that, and I appreciate that.
Well, you got that, and that's just, that's the way I operate. That's the way we all operate. And I mean, it's not really, it's common sense law enforcement.
It's common sense, but there's a lot of people that don't have common sense.
I'm like you. I would hate to live in a county where I was unsure about my sheriff if it went bad, if it hit the fan.
Yep.
I would hate to think that the sheriff wasn't going to be at the front. That's where I'll be.
That's where you'll be.
You
is
know,
in
one of
front.
the real ironic things is, one of my daughters, she lives in California, and we visited at the tail end of COVID. Like, COVID was over here. I mean, it was over in Nashville, too.
Yeah.
But we went out there, and it was funny because you go out there, and every restaurant, like you looked online, and they said all the restaurants in San Diego County are closed, they're under a moratorium, blah, blah, blah. We get out there, all the restaurants are open. And they all have these great big signs out front that said, we're open in protest. Like some lawyer wrote it. It was a protest opening, which I guess in California, if you call what you're doing a protest, you're allowed, whatever you're doing, you're allowed to do it.
That's smart. That's use their own logic against them.
But here's the irony. Here's what kills me is, they had about half the tables, but the restaurants were full. You had to get a reservation. It was hard to get in. These restaurateurs are running a restaurant trying to make a living. And there's but you kind of scratch your head. You go, okay, so you elect politicians that pass rules and try to enforce rules on you that you don't even want to follow. And then the next election comes, and instead of going, well, why don't we just elect people that will let us live our lives? And I think a lot of those people out there, even, they want to live their life, but they like the rules in place, but they're still not going to follow them. I mean, it was the weirdest thing because, like I said, you looked online and it said, man, they're still under moratorium. Everything has to be to go, blah, blah. Dude, you walked into these restaurants, man, they were running wide open, man. It was the weirdest thing. Like, why don't you just elect people that let you live? And like you said, if you know what, if you got a 90-year-old grandma at home that you're taking care of and you don't want to go to Brandon Taylor's church, don't go.
Stay home.
Stay home. Like, hey, I understand that. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I understand that. Like today, if you have someone in your home that has leukemia or something like that, yeah, you know what? And you want to wear a mask to Walmart because you're caring for an elderly person and you're thinking about your situation, great.
Yep.
But don't tell me I got to do it.
Well, see, here's the thing about the mask. And I'm just going to put it out
They don't
there.
work.
No, they actually make it worse. I'm going to tell you why they make it worse. I'm a numbers guy. So I go and I look at the N95 mask, and I look at the size of the virus, and I look at the size of what an N95 mask can filter in and filter out. And it's literally the chances of you not getting COVID using an N95 mask, if you're going to get COVID, is like standing behind a chain link fence at 8 o'clock at night and say, I'm protected by mosquitoes. That's the difference. But I even take it a step further. What do the people I've watched wear masks, what do they always do when they're talking? They're constantly adjusting the mask on their face. So they're constantly putting these germs right on top of their face. I don't sit there and touch my face all the time like these people that wear masks. They're constantly adjusting it. So,
and unless you're throwing it away about every 2 hours, like if you're hanging it
Yeah.
up in your car,
But who's doing
putting
that?
it back on, but unless you're unless you're going through a couple bucks a day, you're
who's
not
doing that, though?
nobody.
Nobody. Not even the hospitals are doing that.
I'm just glad I'm glad it's over, or not. It's 99% over.
Yeah, it's coming again, though, trust me.
I'm glad it's.
They're going to use something else.
I had a
but it's
saying.
coming.
I had a saying during that time. I said, "Look, don't call me and ask me if I'm going to have church, and I won't call you and ask you if you're coming."
There you go.
There it is. And so I'll just go ahead and say it out publicly right now. If they have another pandemic, I'm going to have church meeting.
You mean if? You mean when?
No, when they have whatever.
It's
I mean,
when, guys.
if it
I'm telling you. I
happens. So-
promise you. It's
And
when.
at least I know where the sheriff stands.
Well, here's the thing:
That's
if we had a pandemic like the Black Death, you wouldn't have to mandate people stay at home.
That's correct.
Like, because if you went to Lawrence's house, Lawrence would be standing with an AK-47. If you came down his driveway, you're not going to make it to bring disease to his family. The government is not going to have to tell him when he can't be around other people. And I'm using you, but I can.
But again, you got to look at how the mainstream media is controlled by the party that would do that. I'm telling you, the media
drives fear.
They absolutely drive fear.
Right, and it's so frustrating because I used to enjoy the evening news. That was my thing. Sit down, try to stay up
Relax.
to watch the 10 o'clock news,
Yeah.
see some good stories about what's going on locally, get the weather, get some sports, see some highlights of some high school games around Middle Tennessee, get the traffic in the mornings. But it's so frustrating now. I usually watch I don't know. I got like two. I think I got an app. I got a Roku TV, so I've got a 4 app and a 5 app and a 2 app, and I'll switch. And I get so mad. It's usually 30 seconds, and I flick it off to something else, and then 30 seconds, and then it goes to the sportsman's channel or the outdoor channel or the golf channel.
No
and
more
I'm like,
Ralph Emery show.
I'm done.
The Ralph Emery show's over. You remember the Ralph
Yeah,
Emery show?
yeah.
That's over.
Yeah.
You know where I found myself doing a lot here lately, over the last couple of months, or at least the last month, is I'm listening to WDXE a lot.
Me too.
Yep.
I mean, I really
Me
am.
too.
I am listening to WDXE, not just because we're on here. I mean, that's not the fact, but I mean, I listen to your show. You know, I'll listen to Jerrod's show that he has. I listen to even my show, not because I like listening to myself, but I'm trying to get better at doing what I'm doing. You know, I want to bring the best I can be. But I find myself wanting to listen to more of what my community is.
And we know behind the scenes, this is conservative radio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know behind the scenes. We know what's going on. We were talking in the hallways before we come in. We're getting ready. And what we say in this room is a lot of times what we're saying when we're walking out of here to go get in the car. We don't change up for anything. We don't put on a production. That's one reason why I think that doing this as the Lawrence County Republican Party, I think it's been great because people actually get to see what we stand for.
Well, I think another reason people listen to us, not that I don't know how big our audience is, but I do think the reason people
It's
listen
huge.
to some of these shows is because we actually say stuff that people think and
We're
they're
not afraid to say it.
And they go, did someone just say that on the radio? Because me and my buddies have been saying that, and I think it reaffirms, like, you know what's going on is crazy, and we need to take a different direction. And we're talking about this in public. I mean, this is a very public setting, and people are like, is it okay to say that? And I think like making it okay to talk about this stuff is like a step in the right direction to getting a change, because
right.
you're so suppressed by culture that, like, man, if we don't fall in line, I'm going to get in trouble. You know what I mean?
Well, and I tell you, you know, it's a joke, you know, when we were joking earlier about, you know, making the omelet for John, but to me it's an honor because of what that man does for our community and he does for us, because I feel my family's a lot safer. I feel my children is a lot safer when he's our sheriff. And if I can make him an omelet once a month, that's a small price in my eyes to pay.
Yeah, and I'll say that about all the law
Can I put my
enforcement
order
in Lawrence County.
Sure.
Can I put it in now?
Yeah, what's your
Saturday
order?
morning?
Can I have steak and eggs Saturday morning?
Yeah.
I told you, you don't rate. You're not there yet. You're close.
Look, after what he spent on that constable election, after what he spent on that constable election, we need to make that man an egg.
Hey, he might have spent more than what John had to spend on his election.
Oh my! Come on now.
If he'd have donated that much to West End, we'd have put his picture on the wall.
Kidding.
Well, I don't know.
It's all paid off, though, didn't it? It paid off. Top vote getter.
We love aggravating.
Oh man!
That just shows you.
You know,
spending
I
that
can
money,
stay.
you
You know, I can stay home and get treated like this, right? You know?
Hey, we all can stay home and get treated like
You
this.
wouldn't have near the fun.
Well, we're not in here because we're like this. We're like this because
We're
in
like
here.
this. Yeah, we're like this.
Yeah. Well, our next Republican Party meeting, I'm going to go ahead and say this, is July 25th, 6 p.m. We're going to be talking about the special session. We're going to have a group of people going. We actually want to see a group of citizens come together, men and women that are willing to go to our state capitol. And the governor's talking it up more and more. He's meeting with state reps. He's meeting with state senators this week, every day, as a matter of fact, daily. From what I understand from the ones I've spoke with, they have appointments. And Kip Capley said it Monday on his show that I think he's going to be in there the end of the week.
Tomorrow. Yeah,
so
he's going in
meeting with
tomorrow.
the governor. The governor he's counting his votes. He's trying to see what they have. They're going to call a special session. He's moving forward. I mean, if he were working. If Governor Bill Lee were working this hard to solve homeless problem in the state of Tennessee, we could almost change the state. If he were working this hard to do, there are so many other things that we could be talking about in the state of Tennessee with a billions of dollar budget surplus, and this is his special session. This is something that's urgent for him.
So if he's doing that, and I'm leaning forward on this on purpose, why can't he just make schools safer by doing the right thing? That's all I'm saying. But it's not
understand.
about that. It has nothing to do about that. It has to do with, I believe, taking away our rights. And frankly, I'm sick of it. Him doing things like that. And that kind of brings me to a question I had for John. Was, God forbid, but if this thing was to get any type of a red flag implemented, John, how could people keep from being targeted, and what would you do to try to keep people like us safe?
Well, let me first, I think the majority of people in this county and surrounding area, I've been very vocal about where I stand.
Yes.
And I think most people know where I stand. But if you don't, my stance is pretty clear, Guns don't kill people. People kill people, number one.
Right.
You can load a firearm and set it right there, and it'll sit there 1,000 years, and it'll never hurt anybody until somebody picks it up and points it and pulls the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean everybody out there should be able to walk into a pawn shop and buy a Glock 17? No, of course not. Everybody would agree that there are individuals out there that have no business owning a firearm. I was just dealing with one earlier today out sitting in front of the courthouse. The fact of the matter is, there is no way you can ever keep somebody with ill intentions from getting a firearm.
That's
It's
right.
not possible. It's not possible. I don't care what you put in place. I don't care if you put some kind of a BS buyback program, which is nothing more than seizing somebody's firearm. I don't care what you put in place. You're never going to be able to stop Joe Criminal out there from killing people if he's got it in his mind to kill people.
Correct.
So, with that being said, a red flag law. So if somebody, and from my understanding, a red flag law is the quick version is the judge, or from my understanding, a judge can impose a weapon seizure on somebody based on probable cause. All right. As far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to give you an example. We was just dealing with this guy a couple of months ago. He's a convicted felon. He'd done prison time. I never knew this guy before we started dealing with him. And some of the people listening may know who I'm talking about. I don't remember his name, but this guy was on social media, and he was obviously suffering from some kind of a delusional mental episode, or he was on drugs, or both, one of the two. It was obvious he was hallucinating. He was posting videos of just it's like he was walking out in his yard and he was just panning a camera around, and he was saying, "Can you not see them? They're up there in the trees. They've been watching me for days." That kind of stuff. It's obvious this guy had a screw loose.
Yeah.
Or he was impaired or under the influence of some kind of a drug or narcotic. And then it started to escalate. It started to escalate to where he was making these broad threats. When you come up here in my driveway, I'm going to go get an unregistered firearm that somebody knows that if you know me, you know I can't possess this firearm, but I'm going to go find one unregistered, and I'm going to take you out. And then it started to escalate to the neighbors. The threats started to be a little bit more targeted towards individuals. And I'm dealing with the neighbors, and I'm telling them, look, for me, I can go up in somebody's driveway and knock on the door and ask him if I can toss a consensual encounter. But if he tells me, no, you're trespassing, get off my property, I got to turn around and leave.
Right.
Unless I see something in plain view, or something happens that I can articulate why I stepped it up a little bit further. If I say, no, I'm not going to leave just yet, I'm going to stick around for just a few more minutes, But I have to be able to articulate that. But this guy's a good example of somebody that I would have loved to went in his house. I would have loved to have been able to obtain a search warrant and went into his house to make sure that this guy didn't have guns. But I couldn't. I didn't have the probable cause.
Even with him saying that online, that he had an unregistered firearm?
he didn't say he had one. He said he would go get one.
Okay, gotcha.
So this is a guy that I would have liked to brought him in, sat him down, questioned him about what he was saying on the internet, what he was saying on social media, and searched his house to make sure. That way I could have went to the neighbors and said, hey, we checked this guy out.
Sure.
We checked his house. He doesn't have any firearms. Make sure you keep your eyes on him. If you see him, coming into your driveway or something, do what you have to do to protect your family and yourself and stuff. Don't take any chances. I use those words more than I use anything else when I'm giving advice to people. If they've got somebody threaten them or they're scared of somebody, I always say, don't take any chances. But at the same time, what I'm saying all that to say this: I don't believe that the Second Amendment's clear. It shall not be infringed. I get that. But this would have been something that, and I don't know how you fix it. I mean, I don't know where the midway point is in this argument. But like I said, I would have liked to have been able to obtain a search warrant with the information I had, but I knew it wasn't enough probable cause.
Right.
And I even talked to an ATF guy, and I said, you're a field agent in our area. Is this something y'all can do something with? And he's like, nah. I'm like, well, you work. I mean, you work for the feds. You have unlimited resources. And he's like, no.
Well, did you go to the door and talk to the guy?
No, what happened is he actually came by the sheriff's office, and he was still in that delusional state, and he was telling the deputies, hey, I've got this going on at my house, and they went out to his house later, and he was showing them stuff like, see, this is where they did this, and they left this over here, and my deputy finally said, look, man, I'm not seeing anything. And he got mad, and he told the deputy to leave, and he went in his house and slammed the door. I think we wound up going back out there again, and we actually transported him to the emergency room so he could get a mental evaluation. He was obviously having some problems, but all in all, you're never going to keep somebody with those kind of thoughts in their head of killing people. You're never going to prevent them from getting a gun. It's not going to happen. It's not possible.
It's not possible, and this is what I detest about any type of a red flag law. To me, is and just reading the Bible, and I try to read it as much as I can. But I know by reading the Bible that laws like this will be used against Christians in the future.
It'll be abused.
It
100%. 100% it'll be abused. Here's something else I think that we could do in this country to deter gun violence. Number one, making a mandatory 3-strike, you're out. If you're a convicted felon and you get caught with a firearm, third time you go to prison.
Right.
A minimum of 20 years. Minimum of 20 years. And another thing, stiffen up the penalty. Stiffen up all the penalties on gun violence. I never dreamed I would live in a day where I could see a guy go into a liquor store and murder a clerk and get a 30-year sentence. And be out in less than 20.
Right.
I never thought I would live in a day like this. I'm telling you, we need to bring back the death penalty.
Well, soft
Absolutely.
judges create hardened criminals.
We need to bring back
We've been saying that.
Yeah, and we 100% agree.
Yeah.
Death penalty, that's how you deter crime. How do you deter crime? With punishment. I mean, that's how you keep your kids straight. How you keep your kids straight. Like, I'll punish you if you do this, So that's just the way it works. Now, talking about everything that's going on with the special session and things that are kind of rolling in, I'm looking at an article right now, just came up 2 hours ago, and it looks like Bill Lee he's not officially announced a special session, but it's on Channel 4 News right now. I'm looking at WSMV.com that he is saying that on August 21st, the Tennessee General Assembly will hold a special legislative session. Now, it's been hard to get exact wordage of that. He's not wanting to come out and say it, but we are seeing these types of stories are coming up more prevalent. I think Bill Lee is building some support. I do believe that he has counted his votes, and I do believe he's calling a special session because he thinks he's going to get some legislation passed. My goal is I would love to see a lot of people come together. Let's go to the state capitol. Let's be present. Let's be right there in eyesight view of our state reps and our state senators. And let's support the ones who are out there like Kip Capley, Clay Doggett, Joey Hensley. Those are out there pushing back against all this legislation. They don't want the special session. We want it shut down. Me personally, I would love to see this be the biggest failure Bill Lee has ever had.
I believe it's going to be.
I want it to fall to pieces. I want it to be something that he regrets. We need to make this a political nightmare for him.
So what are they just, what's the session? Are they going to discuss, what's the discussion?
Well, the
gonna
red
be?
flag laws is one of the central things. They haven't announced it yet, but the red flag laws was one of the central things that brought it up. They're also supposed to be talking about some mental health stuff. And I think what Bill Lee's doing is he's counting his votes and going to try to see what he can get. They're talking about giving some more money for some mental health facilities. But if he has the votes for red flag laws, they're going to push him. From everything I heard, I don't think they have the votes for red flag.
Here's what he said. This is WSMB right now. 2 hours ago, the story was just updated. He was just saying, I'm gonna paraphrase some of it. Governor Bill Lee said supplying SROs might be a topic for the special legislative session in August. Okay, this is Bill Lee, and it's because, and I'm reading it right here. This is talking about Davidson County. Metro Public Schools have 170 officers short. They need 170 officers, SRO officers, in metro schools in Nashville.
And how many billions do we have of surplus right now in Tennessee? That's easy to do, but we've talked about where you can allow teachers to carry
They
and
just
train them.
passed an SRO bill though. What
We just got, that's what I was looking for on our phone. We just got our check today from the state. It's
maybe they'll get more.
$1,050,000 is what they sent us to pay for our SRO program.
Well, he's mentioning this today.
The issue with Davidson County is nobody wants to work in Davidson County, and I wouldn't work up there for $500,000 a year.
especially in the schools.
You're not going to find an SRO even if you pay them $65,000 a year to go up there in one of those inner city schools in downtown Nashville to work. You're not going to do it. I wouldn't do it. You're literally one breath from an indictment.
Yeah,
Right.
Those SROs, and I'm telling you what, I've got some of the most top-notch guys that's out there that's working in the schools, and it takes a different type of officer to work in a school. You talk about anger management, baby, you got to have some serious anger management, because those guys deal with some of the rowdiest, meanest, most disrespectful kids that you can imagine. To sit and read some of those reports that come across the desk, because when they fill out a juvenile attachment, they have to attach an official report with it, and we see those reports when they come through. And to see and hear that some of the things that these kids are doing and saying, it's unfathomable. No kid would have ever done anything like that.
And you're talking about Lawrence County right now.
I'm just talking about Lawrence County.
Yeah, could you imagine what it is? Could you imagine what it is if a kid's in a home and the parents are going, I hate the cops, don't talk to cops, you don't have to. So you're an SRO, you go to school and the kids are spitting on you, and if you react,
you're indicted.
You got Funk down there.
You're going to get
he'll put you in jail in a
fast.
minute.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's not fair. That's not fair.
Well, it's not fair, and it's a horrible way to try to build a society. Like, when that's the building block of your society, where are you going to end up?
But we're seeing that though right now. We're any large city right now. They're all democratically run. I don't think there is a city over 1 million people right now in the United States that has a Republican mayor. That was something I read the other day. The last Republican mayor that had that was Jacksonville,
I was
Florida.
actually going to say
Jacksonville.
And
Now it's a
wonder-
Democrat now.
They wonder why their violent crime is increasing every year. They
something.
wonder why.
Yeah.
It fits into this, and it also fits into the gun control debate. I was listening to the radio the other day, so I might have these numbers a little bit off, but it's generally right. There's 195 countries in the world. And they always say that, the U.S., the violent crime rate, we're the third or fourth from the worst. We're the third or fourth from the worst when it comes to gun violence.
Yeah,
that is absolutely true.
Take
but
out
if you
4 cities.
if you
Five
take out the
cities.
5 most violent cities in America, we're like 180th.
No,
So-
it's more than that. You probably heard me
Yeah.
say that.
No, I heard it on the.
Oh, you had heard because I said this here. What about?
Maybe I was listening to you on the
ago.
radio.
Yeah,
You heard it on WDXE.
I mean,
I
I
don't know
I
yet.
said this a month ago. So here's the actual numbers.
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay, so the actual numbers right now, out of 189 countries, we are number 3 in gun violent deaths. If you take out the top 5 cities, and one of the cities was actually, it was, I wasn't expecting it, was Houston. But then we had the normal. We had the Los
Chicago,
Angeles, Chicago, New York, and Baltimore area. Okay? If you take those 5 cities out, we then fall to 186 out of 189. That's what it falls down to.
And so that's the thing, but also think about that. Those cities have the strictest gun control, like Chicago.
Yeah.
Probably has a strict Chicago. In New York, you're not even allowed to transport a gun without a permit.
That's
like if
correct.
you own a gun in New York in your home, you can't legally put it in your car and go hunting with it. You have to have a permit to transport it.
Correct.
And those are, and actually, if you also look at the violent crime rate, if you look at states, every time you look at states and you look at violent crime rate, Tennessee's always really bad. But
Yeah.
if you take out Memphis,
Yes. Take out Memphis.
we're not that bad. Or like we don't have a violent crime problem.
And we
here.
don't mean take out Memphis. We just mean
No,
leave it out of the
we just
statistics.
we leave it out. Of the
Don't
statistics.
hurt yourself.
Oh, come on, come on, come on.
Oh my God, you're killing me, Smalls.
But yeah, but that's the thing. It's like these big cities with all this gun control. So it kind of fits into both things we were saying here. Talking about gun control,
Right,
but
right.
also talking about like why would you want to be an SRO in one of these big little
Well,
cities?
you wouldn't. So, I'll even take it down, to this point. When you mention these counties or these states, they're states I don't go to because of the gun laws. So, I mean, why would I even go to California? Why would I even go to Baltimore?
Let me throw this in.
Maryland.
People who are listening, people in Lawrence County, wherever you live in Tennessee, if you don't think that they'll take your gun rights away, just go travel this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just go travel, because you'll leave here in a state where that firearm's legal in your vehicle, and you'll be convicted in another state.
And they'll put you
Oh, no.
20
That's
years
the
in
law
prison.
that they want to.
They'll put you 20
That's
years in
exactly right.
Hey,
prison.
go to Canada.
We
Not
have
me.
to make a stand.
George Bush passed that exemption for law enforcement, so I'm good.
So here's the
You know what
question.
though? Illinois will put you in jail if you have over a 10-round magazine.
That's
Well,
correct.
If they arrest me in Illinois, if I go to Illinois and I get stopped and I've got a 17-round magazine in my Glock pistol, and they try to arrest me being a full-time officer, I'm gonna have additional charges. Number one, I'll be wearing an orange jumpsuit by midnight.
Really.
Well,
Give me a call. I'll come bail you
listen,
out.
we want to see the mugshot.
So,
Sheriff John Myers, we're glad you're here. I want to get this plug in because we're running the last few seconds. But July 25th, 6 p.m., Lawrence County Courthouse. We're going to be there with the GOP meeting. We want to see you there. Upstairs courtroom. If you're not already written this down on your calendar, put it down. We're going to be talking about the special session that's going to be coming up. John Myers, we're glad you're here. We support our sheriff. We support Lawrence County law enforcement.
Thank you.
God bless
Appreciate
you.
it. Thanks
We
for
keep
the
you in
invite.
our prayers. And
Next
Lawrence,
time we'll do a 2-hour show.
Well, I was going to say real quick, are you going to, if they do have that session, are you going to be able to come with us?
When is it?
August 21st. We're going to need somebody with a gun that can legally carry one.
Let me see. I think that's my birthday. No, my birthday's 19th.
Oh,
I'll
well,
probably be out of town though.
Well, and just anybody, also, if you show up an hour early before the meeting, before the Republican meeting, you can watch the county commission vote on the budget. And if you want to get up and voice your support,
Yeah, absolutely.
For the
Good
Sheriff's
deal.
Department. Come
Good
on.
deal.
W237FD Lawrenceburg. Broadcast services of Prospect Communications.
Sala thinks watching players get cut is inhumane.
This is the Rich